Dragon Emperor Sun Chapter 131 to Chapter 140. Wu Yifan was stunned. How did she know how much David could pay? She could only look at David and asked, "Brother Fat asked you, how much do you want to pay to solve this problem?" "I can tell you, if Brother Fat didn't look at my face, even if you pay, Brother Fat will ruin you." Wu Yifan frightened David, hoping that David would pay a little more money to send this man away and save himself the pain of flesh and blood. Seeing Wu Yifan touting himself like this, the fat man with big ears finally had a smile on his face. "Is this number okay?" David slowly stretched out a finger. "You want to send me for $10,000? The fat-headed and big-eared man said with a cold expression on his face. "David, what do you think? If you beat the fat guy, you will pay 10,000 to send the beggars." Wu Yifan reprimanded David and winked desperately at David. "I'm not talking about 10,000 yuan." David shook his head. 100,000 yuan is not much, said the fat-headed man. Wu Yifan was also in a bit of a dilemma at this time. 100,000 yuan is reasonably a lot. Looking at David like this, and he has just been released from prison, it is impossible to have much money. "Fat brother, look at him like this, I feel that 100,000 is his limit. He was just released from prison, and he probably doesn't have much money on him." Wu Yifan is begging for David. Just got out of prison. The fat-headed and big-eared man was stunned for a moment. No wonder he is so ruthless and has a little courage. "I don't care whether he has money or not, and if he wants to send me for 100,000, it is impossible." Seeing that the man didn't agree, Wu Yifan could only look at David again and said, "You take more?" "No, I still have some on me, and I will lend it to you, but I can agree that you have to pay it back, and this money is my opinion. I only borrowed it for Hanin's face. I'm not talking about 100,000, David shook his head again. Seeing that David said it was not 100,000, Wu Yifan was stunned, but the fat-headed man had excitement on his face, but he still pretended to be cold and said, "Did you mean 1,000,000? If you can make 1,000,000, I won't care about you, since you have also entered the game, I can let you mix with me. I'm talking about $1. David said, took out a coin from his pocket, and tossed it gently in his hand. Seeing David and paying himself $1, the man suddenly became angry. "Num, you dare to play with me, today I will kill you." Then Wu Yifan was also suddenly furious. "David, what do you mean? I begged for mercy, but you didn't appreciate it, only offered $1, I don't care about you." Wu Yifan was pissed off by David. If it wasn't for Wang Hanin's sake, she wouldn't care about David. Wu Yifan dodged aside, and the fat man with big ears picked up a chair and smashed it towards David. This time, he brought more than a dozen people, but he was no longer afraid of David, and his attack was obviously a lot more ruthless, so he directly attacked him. But when the fat-headed and big-eared man smashed at David, David suddenly flicked the coin in his hand, and the coin hit the man's wrist like a bullet. A burst of severe pain came, and the man threw away the chair in his hand. Looking at his wrist, he was already bleeding. Hack him for me!" the fat-headed man growled. Seeing this, a dozen people brought by the man took out their weapons and rushed towards David. "Brother David!" Seeing this, Wang Hanin was so frightened that she screamed and wanted to protect David, but was held back by Wu Yifan. At this time, Wang Hanin's words in the past are also in vain to take his own life. Facing more than a dozen people, David was still sitting on the chair, without even moving. The expression on his face remained the same. It's just that he picked up a plate of peanuts on the table, then suddenly grabbed a handful, and threw it at the dozen people who rushed over. Seeing David throwing peanuts at him, all the dozens of people showed disdain on their faces, and no one did. What damage can a peanut hit on the body do? But soon, these dozen people regretted it. Because they felt that the peanuts hit their bodies, as if they were hit by a bullet, their whole body shook suddenly, and then they fell to the ground one after another. There is blood flowing out. Seeing this scene, the fat-headed and big-eared man was stunned. His whole body seemed to have been immobilized, and he stared motionlessly at the mourning subordinates in front of him. What's going on? The fat-headed and big-eared man swallowed hard. She didn't answer him, because Wu Yifan was already stunned at this time. She didn't expect David to be so powerful. Wu Yifan instinctively turned her head to Wang Hanin. She hoped that Wang Hanin could explain to her well what happened to David. At this time, Wang Hanin was also stunned. She didn't even know that David had such ability. With just a handful of peanuts, he directly killed more than a dozen people, which was incredible. Are you still killing me? David asked indifferently, looking at the fat-headed man. The man's Adam's apple rolled and wanted to say something, but looking at David's indifferent expression, he couldn't say a word. After a while, the fat-headed and big-eared man woke up from the shock, and after trying his best to take 2 deep breaths, he said to David, "Boy, you really have 2 strokes, but you know who I am." "Human? I am a member of the Along Gang, and this trip to the street is also from the Along Gang. If you hit me now, you are following our entire Along Gang as an enemy. What about being an enemy of your Along Gang? If you have the ability, just use it." David couldn't help but sneer. The fat-headed and big-eared man's face flushed red, and finally he took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Although I don't know who he is calling, everyone knows that the fat-headed man must be calling for a helper. Soon, after hanging up the phone, the fat-headed and big-eared man showed a hint of pride on his face. "Boy, wait to die, this time Brother Xiang comes in person, even if you have 100, don't even think about leaving alive." This man called Liao Feixiang, and now Feng Sihai has left the Along Gang and left everything to Liao Feixiang to take care of it, so now there is a problem, he can only call Liao Feixiang. Hearing the words of Brother Xiang, David laughed. He just came out of Liao Feixiang's office, but he didn't expect to meet again soon. "Okay, I'll wait and see, how can the bear brother you mentioned make me die?" David said with disdain. On the other side, Wu Yifan heard the words of Brother Xiang, his face turned green, he hurriedly winked at Wang Hanin, and then whispered in Wang Hanin's ear, "Hanin, please persuade David, let's go. Don't think that if you have 2 strokes, you are not afraid of anyone. Let me tell you, this Brother Xiang is the right-hand man next to Feng Sihai, the leader of the Along Gang. He is very capable of fighting, and he is ruthless." Hearing this, Wang Hanin was also quite frightened, nodded slightly, then walked to David's side, and said softly, "Brother David, let's go, it's too late." Wang Hanin didn't follow David to tell the truth about Brother Xiang's greatness, because she knew that David's heart had already swelled to the extreme at this time. If she said this, David would not leave. David looked at Wu Yifan, then looked at Wang Hanin and said, "Hanin, you and Wu Yifan go first, I'll go home in a while." Seeing that David didn't leave, Wang Hanin was very anxious, so he could only say truthfully, "Brother David, Yifan just said that Brother Xiang is very powerful, we should not provoke him." "It's okay, I'm not afraid." David smiled slightly. Seeing that David didn't listen to his advice, Wu Yifan could only reprimanded loudly, "Don't think that you are invincible if you have 2 strokes, this Brother Xiang is the right-hand man of the Along Gang, and he is very capable of fighting. That's it, it is estimated that 2 or 3 if you can't beat him, do you still dare to stay?" "What's not to dare?" David's face didn't matter. Wu Yifan was going to be so mad that he could only pull Wang Hanin away, desperately pulling her away. "Hanin, let's go, really leave him alone, now he has provoked the Along Gang. It's definitely impossible to see the sun tomorrow, we die with him, it's not worth it." Wang Hanin was dragged away by Wu Yifan. Although the fat-headed and big-eared man did not want Wu Yifan and Wang Hanin to leave, Liao Feixiang had not arrived yet, so he did not dare to make a sound, so as not to be beaten by David. Not long after Wu Yifan pulled Wang Hanin away, he saw several cars approaching at high speed, and then stopped in front of the food stall. When the food stall owner saw this, he was so frightened that he hid in the house, and the people around him who were eating and watching the fun all dispersed at this time. They all know Liao Fixiang's reputation, and no one dares to provoke such a person, or even lose his life. When the fat-headed man saw this, he hurried over and respectfully opened the door of the first car. Liao Fixiang walked out of the car with a cigar in his mouth, and the people who were looking at him were full of envy. Brother Xiang, seeing Liao Fixiang, the fat-headed and big-eared man shouted hurriedly, with endless grievances on his face. "Fat boy, look at you, what a shame for the Along gang." Liao Fixiang frowned as he looked at the fat-headed and big-eared man. "Where is the troublemaker?" "Brother Xiang, just sitting there." The man pointed at David and said. Liao Fixiang looked in the direction of his fingers, and when he saw that it was David sitting, Liao Fixiang shook slightly, and the cigar in his mouth fell to the ground. Seeing Liao Fixiang's gaffe, the fat-headed and big-eared man looked confused, and hurriedly picked up the cigar and said, "Brother Xiang, this guy is only one person, but he has some skills. All my subordinates have been beaten." Liao Fixiang was so angry, he really wanted to scold the fat boy. David has some skills here. He is obviously very powerful. Even Feng Sihai was defeated by one kick. Who can be David's opponent in the whole Horondal? Brother Xiang. David looked at Liao Fixiang at this moment with a playful expression on his face. "We are really destined to meet again." Hearing this, Liao Fixiang hurriedly changed into a smiling face and walked up. "Mr. Chen is joking, it's because I have no way to discipline me." This time, the fat-headed and big-eared man was dumbfounded. He stared at the flattering Liao Fixiang, not understanding what happened. "Your subordinates are very good. You said that I have 100 lives, and I can't do without here tonight." The corner of David's mouth raised slightly and said. "How is it possible, Mr. Chen's ability, who can stop Horondal?" Liao Fixiang smiled awkwardly, then looked at the fat man with big ears and said, "Fat boy, get over here." The fat-headed and big-eared man had a confused look on his face, so he could only walk over slowly. "Don't kneel down for me and apologize to Mr. Chen." Liao Fixiang kicked the man fiercely. "Pfft!" The fat-headed and big-eared man knelt down in front of David at once. "Okay, don't come with me. Before you help find his master, I won't touch you, unless you don't provoke me with eyes." David knew that Liao Fixiang was just pretending in front of him to give him face. David injured Feng Sihai, and this hatred was formed with the Along gang. It is impossible for Liao Fixiang to truly respect himself. After David finished speaking, he got up and left. Liao Fixiang looked at David's back with a cold glow in his eyes. "Bear, Brother Xiang, this person is..." Watching David leave, the fat-headed and big-eared man stood up and asked Liao Fixiang with a puzzled face. Snapped. Liao Fixiang slapped the fat man with big ears in the face. "I tell you, if you see him in the future, hide away from me. Our helper was injured by him. If you can live today, just burn incense." After Liao Fixiang finished speaking, he also took people away. In the end, only the fat-headed and big-eared man was left standing where he was in horror. In the community, Wang Hanin was anxiously waiting for David at the door. Wu Yifan sent Wang Hanin back and left. "Hanin, if you don't go home, who are you waiting for?" Seeing that Wang Hanin was back, Wang Chongfeng didn't even go home, so she asked. "Mom, go home first, I'll be waiting for brother David." Wang Hanin said with a bit of anxiety on his face. "What happened to David? Didn't you come back together?" Seeing Wang Hanin's anxious look, Wang Chongfeng asked hurriedly. Wang Hanin was stunned, not knowing how to explain it to his mother. "Hanin, where's David? Didn't you come back with you?" At this time, Barbara and Chen Baoqiu also came. Seeing Barbara and Chen Baoqiu, Wang Hanin was afraid that the two would be worried, so he hurriedly said, "Brother David has something to do, he may not be back until later. This kid doesn't know what he's busy with, he's already off work, how can he have so many things to do?" Barbara muttered. "Aunt Chen, go back first, I'll just wait for Brother David here." Wang Hanan wants Barbara to follow Chen Baoqiu. After all, when will David come back? Maybe he can come back. I wanted to give you a surprise, David, the child, hasn't come back so late. Barbara said with a sigh. Surprise? Wang Hanan was taken aback. Seeing this, Wang Chongfeng hurriedly explained, "Your Uncle Chen saw that you and your brother David were both at work, and it was inconvenient to take the bus back and forth, so I bought a car and let you drive on the way to work. I wanted to surprise you, Brother David. He hasn't come back yet. Aunt Wang, you have money in this car too. It was bought by our family for our 2 children." Barbara said quickly. "Forget it, I just added a few thousand yuan, and the rest of the money is not from you." Wang Chongfeng laughed. "This is a scooter for 2 people. When their jobs are stable, let them buy it themselves. We are all old and we can only help here." Chen Baoqiu also spoke at this time. "No, the days to come will depend on the 2 of them." Wang Chongfeng nodded. Listening to the chat of several people, Wang Hanan's face instantly turned red, and the elders of the 2 families had already recognized her and David's affairs. Wang Hanan didn't have any objection in her heart. Following David's contact during this period, she also found that she gradually fell in love with David. It's just David's attitude, Wang Hanan doesn't know, and she can't guess David. "You are so late, what are you talking about at the door?" At this moment, David walked over with a smile on his face. "Brother David." Seeing David coming back, Wang Hanan hurried over and looked at David with concern to see if David was injured. When Wang Chongfeng and Chen Baoqiu saw Wang Hanan following David, they both laughed. Only Barbara sighed, "It would be great if I could see 2 children get married." When David heard it, he wanted to explain to his parents that he just treated Wang Hanan as his sister, but seeing the hot eyes of the 2 adults, he didn't know how to speak. "Mom, don't worry, I will find a way to cure your eyes." David didn't explain, he just said lightly. "I'm used to it. Leave me alone. You 2 are working hard, and you will be rich in the future. You are buying a wedding house and buying a car. Your dad and I probably won't be able to help you anymore." Barbara said with some remorse. After all, David is not married yet, but their parents have no ability to help. "I feel very guilty." "Barbara, don't be like this, it's all right for the 2 children to live well, anyway, my family doesn't want anything." Wang Chongfeng patted Barbara on the shoulder. David listened, and his heart felt uncomfortable for a while, he really didn't know how to open his mouth. "Brother David, Uncle Chen bought you a car, we can drive to work tomorrow." Wang Hanan said to David that she did this to interrupt the conversation of the elders. After all, she and David had not even established a relationship. It was too early to talk about their marriage. "David, your dad has been running all day today. Although the car he bought for you is not a good car, it is better than taking the bus to work." Wang Chongfeng also said to David. When the group walked downstairs, David and Wang Hanan saw that there was a silver-white Chang'an sedan parked in the parking space downstairs, but at first glance it was not a new car. "David, this is a second-hand Chang'an. Although it is second-hand, it has few kilometers. It is still a first-hand car. The car is in good condition. I will buy it for you for more than 40,000. Don't blame me. Dad is nothing." Chen Baoqiu followed David apologetically. David listened to Chen Baoqiu's words, and his eyes suddenly became wet. "Dad, this car is very good, I can make money now, you don't have to worry about it. Well, I can feel relieved to see you go to work with peace of mind. As long as you work hard, everything will happen in the future." Chen Baoqiu nodded and encouraged David. David wanted to go to work for a few days, but he made an excuse for not going to work, because work affected his cultivation too much, but now he doesn't dare to think about not going to work, so he can only go to work temporarily to stabilize his parents' emotions. The next day, when David drove a second-hand Chang'an to the company, he was ridiculed by a group of people, but David didn't care. And Wang Hanin also turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. At this moment, she was very happy in her heart. She could sit in the co-pilot every day and go to work with David. After get off work, she was happy. David, you must come up with today's accounts, or else you'll get out of my way. Not long after going to work, Kui Ziwen found David and ordered. What happened last night? David, who Kui Ziwen hated so much, beat himself up in public and humiliated himself. Kui Ziwen couldn't just let it go. David looked at Kui Ziwen coldly, but ignored him, but Wang Hanin was a little anxious. Manager Kui, with so many accounts, how could brother David ask for it in one day? Isn't that embarrassing him? David did not speak, but Wang Hanin complained for David. What? You also want to go with him to ask for the account? If so, you go to a group with him. If you can't finish it today, don't do it all. Seeing that Wang Hanin dared to question himself, Kui Ziwen said with a cold face. Manager Kui, I choose to transfer the team. At this time, Zhang Tongji unhurriedly raised his hand and said. He could see that Kui Ziwen was targeting David, and David was very disrespectful to Xing Jun yesterday. He felt that he would be dragged down by David sooner or later. All right, let Wang Hanin follow you. Kui Ziwen nodded. This time, Sun Xiaomeng looked at it and didn't speak for Wang Hanin. After all, David beat Kui Ziwen yesterday, which made her very unhappy, especially when David dared to offend Xing Jun. This is an act of courting death. Kui Ziwen returned to the office, while Zhang Tongji unhurriedly cleaned up and moved away the things on his desk like he was dodging the plague. Looking at Zhang Tongji unlike that, David smiled coldly. He originally felt that Zhang Tongjian was a pretty good guy, but he wanted to reuse him in the future. Managed. But now, David has no such idea. Maybe this is the so-called workplace. When facing conflicts of interest, he will save himself. Brother David, what should I do? Wang Hanin looked at David helplessly. Their parents are happy that they can find such a good job, but if they are fired, how will their parents explain it? Don't worry, those accounts will be credited to the company's account soon. David comforted Wang Hanin. Even so, Wang Hanin doesn't quite believe that those companies that owe their debts, how could they take the initiative to repay the money, unless those bosses are sick? Hanin, why do you say you are so troubled? It's over, even you are afraid that you will be expelled. With your conditions, what kind of boyfriend can't be found, you will share with David, sister will give you find a rich second generation. Wang Lanlin leaned over and said to Wang Hanin. Wang Hanin didn't speak, just shook her head. Even if she was fired, she would not be separated from David. Silly girl, seeing this, Wang Lanlin could only helplessly smile. Sonia may have persuaded Wang Hanin originally, but looking at this situation, she feels that it is unnecessary. She knows that David and Wang Hanin are going to work today, the last day. It was just 2 days ago that I was fired directly. This is probably the first case in the company. No, I have never seen such a crazy employee, even the manager dared to fight. He deserves it. What is he pretending to do? He really has the ability. Will he come here to work? Others in the sales department were talking about David. Just as everyone was talking about it, suddenly people from the finance department came in a hurry. Xiao Sun, why did you come to our sales department? Is there something wrong with the accounts? Seeing people from the finance department coming, Sun Xiaomeng stepped forward and asked. Sister Xiaomeng, your sales department is too good. As soon as you go to work today, all the debts from outside have been credited to the company's account. Now there is no company that owes money. Who is in charge of your sales department? It's amazing. Died. Financial Xiao Sun excitedly followed Sun Xiaomeng and said. What? Are all the debts back? Sun Xiaomeng was stunned. And the rest of the sales department got up one after another, looking at the financial little grandson with an incredible look. Xiao Sun, are you right? Are you really paying all the debts? Wang Lanlan also asked incredulously. Don't you know what I've lied to you about? Your sales department has been chasing the arrears all the time. Wouldn't you know who got it back? Finance Xiao Sun looked at Sun Xiaomeng and Wang Lanlan curiously. Oh, I know, of course our manager came forward to chase it back. Sun Xiaomeng suddenly reacted and said hurriedly. This kind of good thing, of course, must be placed on Kui Ziwen's head. Maybe this time, Kui Ziwen will be promoted to become the manager of the purchasing department. Manager Kui is really capable. Xiao Sun smiled slightly. I won't talk to you anymore, I'm going to check the accounts with Manager Kui. Xiao Sun walked into Kui Ziwen's office, and everyone in the sales department was in a frenzy. Damn it, who is this arrogant? All the accounts are going to come up. It's too good. You have to know a lot of accounts, but they are all from a few years ago. It's very difficult to get. Could it be that David? Seeing how confident he is today, he seems to know that the debt will be returned. Take it down, he can bring all these accounts up like that? Didn't I hear that all companies took the initiative to pay them back? It has a F.art relationship with him. Speaking of which, David is so damn lucky, it looks like he won't be fired today. The people from the sales department gathered around to discuss. Brother David, that's great, we won't be fired. Wang Hanan asked David excitedly. Didn't I tell you long ago, don't worry. David smiled. How did you know that the arrears will come back today? Wang Hanan looked at David strangely and asked. Secret? David smiled and didn't tell Wang Hanan. There are some things he doesn't want Wang Hanan to know, but sooner or later he will follow Wang Hanan to confess. Just when the people in the sales department were talking, Kui Ziwen came out with Xiao Sun in finance, and when he saw Kui Ziwen coming out, everyone stopped talking. Kui Ziwen gave David a cold look, and then left. At this time, in the office of the general manager of the company, Xing Jun sat behind the desk with a gloomy face. Xing Jun still had a band-aid on his neck. His neck was cut last night, and 5 faint handprints could still be seen on his face. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, and Xing Jun said coldly, Come in. Mr. Xing, you are looking for me. As soon as he entered the door, Kui Ziwen asked respectfully. It's just that Kui Ziwen was stunned as soon as the words fell, because he saw that there were a few faint red marks on Du Xingjun's face, which was obviously slapped. Seeing Kui Ziwen staring at him like this, Xing Jun frowned slightly. Does it look good? When Kui Ziwen heard this, his whole body trembled with fright, and he hurriedly lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound. The accounts of the sales department, you asked that David for? Xing Jun asked. Kui Ziwen didn't know what Xing Jun meant, so he could only nod his head. Yes, I just want him to hit the wall and kill his spirit, but I don't want this kid to be so lucky. The companies that owe their debts today turned their money away. It's all back. Xing Jun smiled coldly. He knew why these arrears were suddenly repaid. It must have been Sonia's help behind the scenes. However, in the company, only Xing Jun knows the relationship between David and Sonia. In the future, I will let David talk about the contract with Tianmei Daily Chemical. Xing Jun looked at some of the partner information in his hand and said to Kui Ziwen. Tianmei. Kui Ziwen was stunned. Mr. Xing, Tianmei is a big customer, and the Xiao family has always been staring at this customer and asked David to talk. Will this disgust Tianmei and think that we are not sincere? Kui Ziwen did not understand why Xing Jun gave such an important customer to David. You must know that when such a customer signs a contract, the commission they get from sales is sky high. What? Are you questioning my decision? Seeing Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't dare, everything is subject to President Seeng's arrangement. How could Kui Ziwen dare to disobey Seeng Jun? After all, he is his immediate boss. When Kui Ziwen left, Seeng Jun slowly picked up the phone and dialed a number. Young Master Xiao, things are arranged, Tian Mi's contract, I will shoot David to discuss. Ha ha ha, you did a good job, cooperate with me well, what the Sui family can give you, I will give you double. There was a burst of wanton laughter on the other side of the phone, and then hung up the phone. Seeng Jun's phone number was dialed to Jordan. Seeng Jun knew that David was following Jordan's holiday, and also knew that David's girlfriend was occupied by Jordan. In Horrendal, the Xiao family and the Sui family are of equal strength, and the two are also competitors. The Xiao family once poached Seeng Jun with a high salary, but Seeng Jun likes Sonia and always wanted to get along with Sonia, so he rejected the Xiao family. But after last night, Seeng Jun failed to hire a murderer to kill David, and he was slapped in the face, which made Seeng Jun more and more angry, so he got in touch with Jordan. The reason why David went to discuss the contract with Tian Mi was Jordan's idea. Jordan just wanted to humiliate David. How could a big customer like Tian Mi, a small salesperson of David, talk about it? Jordan went in person and humiliated David. In Horrendal's hospital ward, Jordan is still recovering from his injuries. Brother Lei, I'll make you happy. That guy David is not worth your attention. To you, he's just an ant. Without Sonia to protect him, he'd be a piece of SHT. Delia looked at Jordan, who was sitting on the hospital bed, and said happily. Break my arm, of course I want to play with him, I want to slowly kill him. The corner of Jordan's mouth was slightly raised, and his eyes were full of chills. Brother Lei, that guy David can hit him twice, you can't beat him, and the Lin Tian who you are looking for is not reliable. If you want to deal with David, I think you should find some other experts. Delia suggested. Don't worry, I have already sent someone to contact the Along gang. In the entire Horrendal, Lin Tianhu is not the only Juyi Hall. The Along gang is as famous as the Juyi Hall, and it is more than enough to deal with a David. Jordan knew that he couldn't beat David, and the Lin Tianhu he was looking for was useless, so he found someone to contact the Along gang again. Although the Xiao family is very powerful in Horrendal, it is a business family after all, so they are not familiar with gang forces like the Along gang, and they need to find a middleman to introduce it. Brother Lei, when the contract is negotiated, I will also go. I want to see David's shabby appearance. Some time ago, he was so arrogant with the support of Sonia. Now I want to see if he can be arrogant. When Delia remembered how she was humiliated by David some time ago, she was so angry that she died. No problem, just watch him get trampled under my feet. Jordan smiled proudly. In the sales department, Kui Ziwen was very puzzled why Seeng Jun gave David such an important customer, but Seeng Jun said, he had to do it. David, you are lucky, all the debts you owe are suddenly paid back, but as a qualified salesperson, you must not only be able to collect accounts, but also be able to negotiate contracts, so you must learn to negotiate contracts and follow the regulations. You don't talk nonsense, say something directly. David said to Kui Ziwen impatiently. It is estimated that only David himself is the one who follows Kui Ziwen to talk like this. Hearing David's phone call, Kui Ziwen was angry, and he almost vomited blood, but he didn't dare to fire David for no reason, because he didn't know what Seeng Jun was thinking. The company decided to let you follow Tian Mi Daily Chemical to discuss cooperation matters. You must know that Tian Mi Daily Chemical is also the largest cosmetics industry company in Horrendal. If you can negotiate, the commission will naturally be an unexpected figure, but if you talk about it, then stop talking nonsense, give me the information. David looked impatient, This Kui Ziwen said so much nonsense. In fact, he was not jealous of himself, he wanted to embarrass himself. Kui Ziwen's face was cold, and he directly threw the information to David. Humph, this time I will definitely find a way to expel you to make you so arrogant. Kui Ziwen gritted his teeth, thinking secretly in his heart. Kui Ziwen, what do you mean? I've been talking about Mei Ke all day. Do you know how long I've been with me? Why did you give it to him suddenly? At this moment, Sun Xiaomeng became anxious and shouted directly at Kui Ziwen. Everyone knows that Tian Mei is a big customer. If they can negotiate, the commission must be very large, so Kui Ziwen gave this Tian Mei to Sun Xiaomeng at the beginning. After all, no one in the sales department dared to say anything about his relationship with Sun Xiaomeng. And for this client, Kui Ziwen accompanied Sun Xiaomeng many times, and Sun Xiaomeng has been working hard. But at this time, he suddenly gave the client to David. How could Sun Xiaomeng not get angry? Kui Ziwen pulled Sun Xiaomeng and said to Sun Xiaomeng, "Don't make trouble, I'll explain to you later." After he finished speaking, Kui Ziwen looked at David and said, "David, this customer is our company's most important customer, so you have to hurry up and set a time. When can we talk about it?" "Tomorrow." David wanted to talk about the afternoon, but he thought that he would have to inform Lin Tianhu to check in advance, so he said tomorrow. Tomorrow. Kui Ziwen was taken aback. Everyone in the sales department was stunned, looking at David in disbelief. "David, are you out of your mind? This is Tian Mei Daily Chemical. You said you can negotiate the contract tomorrow." Wang Lanlin sneered and laughed, and said with contempt. "David, can you stop bragging? Do you know how long I've been with this client? It's been 3 months, and I haven't been able to talk about it for 3 months. You can talk about it tomorrow." Sun Xiaomeng looked at David angrily. This David said this, she was simply humiliating her. "I haven't talked about it for 3 months, and David actually said that he can do it in 1 day. Isn't this laughing at his incompetence?" Seeing David like that, Kui Ziwen sneered, "David, this is what you said. If you can't talk about it, you'd better get out of your way. Don't talk big in our sales department." "No problem." David happily agreed. This time, Kui Ziwen was very happy. He knew that David would definitely not be able to negotiate the contract tomorrow. If it was so easy, he would not have accompanied Sun Xiaomeng for 3 months. With the Xiao family watching, how could it be so easy to talk about it? Kui Ziwen pulled Sun Xiaomeng into the office to explain, while the others in the sales department gave David a disdainful look, and they all dispersed. When David got the information, he didn't read it, but sent it to Lin Tianhu, but Wang Hanin became nervous and spent the whole day studying Tian Mei's information. "Hanin, you have a class reunion tonight, and it's almost time to get off work now. Get ready first, don't look at that information." Seeing Wang Hanin's anxious face, David continued to study Tian Mei's information, so he persuaded him. "Brother David, it's too difficult to deal with the beauty of daily chemicals today. The general manager of Tian Mei is a person who can't make money. What are we going to talk about tomorrow?" Where is Wang Hanin still thinking about participating in the class reunion? If there is no way to negotiate a contract tomorrow, David will be fired. If David leaves, Wang Hanin himself does not want to stay. "Don't you believe me?" David looked at Wang Hanin. "If I say I can definitely do it, don't worry." Wang Hanin looked at David's firm eyes, and finally nodded, "I believe it." David smiled slightly, patted Wang Hanin's head gently, his eyes showed the kind of doting like a brother and a sister. Just after get off work, Wang Hanin received a call from Wu Yifan, urging her to hurry up. Many classmates arrived. Wang Hanin inquired about the address, and the class reunion turned out to be at the Regal Hotel. This made Wang Hanin a little hesitant, because this class reunion is AA system, choosing such a luxurious hotel, the cost is definitely not small, she doesn't want to spend this money, it feels too wasteful. However, after David's persuasion, Wang Hanan agreed to go. The two of them drove the second-hand Chang'an and went straight to the Regal Hotel. As soon as the two arrived at the door of the Regal Hotel, they saw that Wu Yifan was already waiting anxiously at the door. When Wu Yifan saw David, she was a little surprised. She felt that David offended the Along gang last night and would definitely be beaten to death. Looking at David, there is nothing at all. You didn't get beaten last night? Wu Yifan asked suspiciously. Didn't I tell you, the Along gang are afraid of me, how dare they hit me? David smiled slightly. Just blow it. Wu Yifan rolled her eyes. She didn't believe what David said. How could a gang as big as the Along gang be afraid of David? It must have been solved by David, perhaps by spending money. Believe it or not. David didn't explain any more. Today's Hanan class reunion, you will drive to Chang'an? If you don't have a good car, it is better to take a taxi than to drive a broken Chang'an. Look at the parking lot here, is there such a broken car? Wu Yifan reprimanded David angrily. At that time, David encouraged Wang Hanan to come to the class reunion. Wu Yifan thought that David would find a way to give Wang Hanan a face at the class reunion, but now he is driving a broken Chang'an. What happened to Chang'an? Support domestic production. David didn't care at all. Wang Hanan also hurriedly said, I think this car is very good, it is more comfortable than the bus, let's get in. Seeing that Wang Hanan also said the same, Wu Yifan did not continue to reprimand David, and the three walked into the hotel together. In a luxurious private room, there were already more than a dozen sitting, men and women, chatting and laughing very lively. One of the men with a partial score and a gold watch on his hand is particularly eye-catching. Almost everyone is centered on this man, constantly talking and touting. This man is Lang Bing, Wang Hanan's ex-boyfriend, although he did not follow Wang Hanan and the others, but Lang Bing attended this class reunion as Zhang Miao's boyfriend. Miao Miao, you are so lucky to have found such a good boyfriend. You must know that Brother Bing used to be at school, that's school grass. No, when I first entered the school, Brother Bing was all-powerful in the school. I had a crush on Brother Bing at that time. Look at this watch brought by Brother Bing, it is estimated to cost hundreds of thousands, this is the successful person. Brother Bing is now running his own company, he's so cool. Everyone touted Lang Bing and that Zhang Miao, and they were all fluttering about what they said. It's just a meal, what a successful person, this watch is not worth much, and it was only more than 300,000 when I asked a friend to bring it back from Switzerland. Although Lang Bing is modest in his mouth, his tone of speech is obviously showing off. In fact, when Lang Bing said this, who could not hear what he meant by showing off, but who would dare to say it at this time? Can only make cold Versailles once.